Have you ever noticed some moments like this when you are no longer living your life? You're living in your mind. You're rehearsing conversations before they happen, replaying moments from years ago as if they could still hurt you, planning and predicting and running mental simulations of every possible outcome. The world outside keeps moving, but inside, it's as if time has stopped and all that exists is a swirl of thoughts you can't seem to escape. We call that rumination. I know that feeling. For a long time, I lived there, half in my body, half in a fog of overthinking. And I believed that if I could just think more, plan more, predict more, I could somehow stay safe. But there's a quiet truth that reveals itself when you finally get tired of carrying that mental weight. Overthinking is not protection, it's the mind's attempt at protection. It's a shield made of fog, dense enough to cloud your view, but never solid enough to actually keep you from harm. If you also live in your mind, I want to tell you that there's another way to live, one that feels like breathing clean air after being underwater too long. It's the way of presence, not the empty, silent, perfectly still presence people talk about in meditation textbooks, but the presence that real humans experience. The kind that acknowledges your chaotic mind, your tender heart, your fears, your wounds, and says gently, come back, right here. Just be here with me. When I first learned about mindfulness, I didn't fully understand it. I thought it was just another thing on my to do list, and I kept it separate from other things in life. So basically, I would attend a class, try my best to stop thinking or erase the noise inside my head, which I usually failed anyway, and then, when the class was over, I went about living my chaotic life as usual. But presence isn't the absence of thought, it's the return to yourself again and again, even while thoughts are happening. It's remembering that the mind is not the driver, you are. Overthinking often begins with a sense of threat. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's a leftover echo of something you survived, whether it was disappointment, betrayal, failure, or uncertainty. Your nervous system still remembers the places where you were caught off guard. It remembers the moments that hurt. And so your mind steps in like an overprotective guardian, insisting on scanning every detail, predicting every scenario, preparing for every possibility. But eventually, the preparations become the prison. Presence is the slow, gentle process of teaching your body that this moment is not the past, that you are safe enough to breathe here, that nothing bad is happening right here, right now. When you begin to understand this, something softens. You start to notice how overthinking lives not just in your mind, but in your body. The tight jaw, the raised shoulders, the buzzing chest, the shallow breath. The body speaks first, the mind translates. Presence asks you to listen to the body before you listen to the thoughts, not with force, not with control, but with tenderness. Imagine you're standing in a moment where your thoughts begin spiraling. Maybe a message you haven't answered, maybe someone's silence, maybe a decision with no clear outcome. The mind rushes forward, building stories, weaving old fears into new narratives, trying to find answers that don't exist yet. But if, right then, you pause, if you let your attention fall out of your head and into your body, your breath, your feet on the floor, the temperature of the air on your skin, something shifts. You haven't solved anything yet, but you've changed the place you're solving it from. You've moved from panic to presence. And by the way, in most cases, there wasn't anything that needed solving to begin with. But people would often tell you, just stop overthinking. Or you probably tell that to yourself. But no one overthinks on purpose, right? No one chooses anxiety as a hobby. Overthinking is the mind's way of saying, I'm scared. I'm trying to keep you safe. When you begin to respond to the mind the way you would respond to a frightened child, with patience, with softness, with reassurance, the mind slowly starts to trust you again. It doesn't have to run the whole show. There's a moment in presence where your breath naturally lengthens, where your body loosens without you telling it to, where you don't need to silence your thoughts because your thoughts are no longer shouting. They're speaking normally like any other part of you. And between the thoughts, there's a space, space to feel, space to choose, space to be. That space is where your life is. There's something beautiful, almost sacred, that happens when you start to feel your life again instead of thinking your way through it. You begin to notice small things: the taste of your morning coffee or tea, the warmth of sunlight through a window, the sound of someone's laughter, the sensation of your own breath as it fills and leaves your body. These moments are tiny, almost unremarkable on the surface, yet they're the doorway out of overthinking because the mind cannot be trapped in the past or future when the body is deeply rooted in now. One of the most profound realizations I had in my own journey was that overthinking often comes from the parts of me that didn't feel heard or protected in the past. Those younger versions of me are the ones who broadcast worry into the present. When I feel my chest tighten or my stomach clench, I've learned to see those reactions not as problems, but as signals. The knockings on the door of my awareness saying, we're here. Can you be with us? Presence answers those knocks, not with judgment, not with urgency, but with warmth. And as you start living this way, something interesting happens. Clarity becomes easier. Decisions feel more aligned. Conversations flow more naturally. You express yourself without rehearsing. You listen without preparing your next sentence. You show up to relationships not as a version of yourself shaped by fear, but as the grounded, steady, fully present you. The one people feel safe with, the one who sees things clearly, the one who doesn't lose themselves in mental noise. Presence will ask you to surrender the illusion of control. That can feel terrifying when you've relied on control as your compass for so long. But here's the truth that presence gently teaches: surrender is not helplessness, it's the recognition that life moves more clearly, more honestly, and more beautifully when you're fully here for it. There's a rhythm of presence that grows over time. At first, it feels like something you have to remember to do. Eventually, it becomes the air you breathe. You start building a life where you check in with your inner state before you check your messages, where your mornings begin with awareness instead of urgency, where your worth is not determined by productivity or performance, but by the depth of your connection to yourself. And one day, you notice that you haven't been spiraling as much. Not because life became easier, but because you became steadier. You became kinder with yourself. You learned to interrupt your anxious loops, not with fear, but with breath, sensation, and presence. Presence never promises that you will feel calm all the time, but it does promise that you will no longer abandon yourself in moments of fear, that you will have a place to return to, a home inside yourself that you can trust. Imagine yourself years into the future, looking back at this chapter of your life. Imagine saying, this was the moment I stopped living in fear of what could happen and started living in the truth of what was happening. That is the gift of presence. It lets you experience your life as it unfolds, not as a memory or a projection, but as a living, breathing reality. And the most beautiful part: presence is always available. It doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require hours of meditation. It doesn't require silence or stillness. It only requires a moment where you decide to come back to yourself, a moment where you place a hand over your heart, or slow your breath, or soften your jaw, a moment where you ask quietly, what is actually happening right now? Often the answer is simple. You are safe. You're breathing. You are here. Over time, presence starts to take root in your daily life through small, almost invisible choices. A slower pace, a mindful breath, a gentle pause before reacting, a deeper awareness of your feelings. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You stop believing that thinking more will give you more control. Instead, you start feeling your way through life with trust in your body, trust in your intuition, trust in the wisdom that rises when your mind is no longer drowning out your truth. Presence teaches you that peace is not something you achieve when everything finally goes right. Peace is the quiet strength inside you that knows how to return to yourself even when things go wrong. When you stop overthinking, you don't lose your ability to prepare or analyze or make smart choices. You just stop doing those things from fear. Instead, you act from clarity, from alignment, from the grounded part of you that knows the way even when the future feels foggy. There will still be moments when your mind tries to pull you back into old patterns. That's normal. Overthinking won't disappear overnight. But every time you return to your breath, your body, your sensations, your emotional truth, you rewire yourself. You build trust. You build safety. You build presence. And one day, without realizing it, you begin to live fully again. Not half here, half in your mind, but completely, beautifully, wholeheartedly present in the unfolding miracle of your life. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you get notifications when I post new content. And if you'd like to work with me or join our beautiful, supportive Skool community, Inner Dragon Circle, use the link in the description box below to get free access to it. Now, go be yourself.